Hi, it's Amy at Earth Spirit, and I thought I would do something different today. It's a video I've been planning to do for a while and I put off. I don't know why, but this is about the lovable Peter Tork of the Monkees. And if you've never seen the Monkees, then you need to go check it out, the show on YouTube or in your local side channels that shows reruns. Ours shows the Monkees about once a week, and I was one of the second or third generations that got to see reruns and really loved them. Really loved the Monkees. It was a lot of my summer breaks from school. That was what we watched, and but Peter was sort of the childlike, dumb, yet lovable, funny member of the band. And you had cute Davy with the sparkling eyes. All the girls loved Davy. And Mickey, who was crazy. And he had that rock voice. And then you had Mike, who was the straight guy, you couldn't read him. And it was just, they were based off the Beatles. It was the writers of the show. Paul Mazursky, one of my favorite directors, went on to do great movies, but he helped write the script for the first show. It was based off Hard Day's Night. They had seen the Beatles and said, let's make an American version of the Beatles. So they brought in Davy Jones, who had been on Broadway, and Oliver, I believe, and Mickey Dolenz, who had been in a TV show as a child actor in America, and Mike Nesmith kind of was a cold call, but he had been on TV before, I believe, music. He was a musician. And Peter, who had been in Greenwich Village as one of those sort of, I think he worked with Pete Seeger, so he was like a folk singer kind of singer-songwriter, had left New York, traveled to California, and was told to audition for the show. And Peter had already created this character on stage where he was a sort of dumb, played like a dumb blonde male version, because I guess he didn't like things to get too serious. And it was just his way that if a song failed or a joke failed, then he could just play dumb and everybody would laugh at that. So he had it perfected. And well, I don't want to ramble about that, but I just want to say that if you ever watch the Monkees auditions that's on YouTube, how perfect each of them were in their audition, how obvious it was that they were going to be the Monkees. And the Monkees did not get taken seriously, but to me, they were great. The vocals, the music. Peter was an excellent musician. They were all had great timing with comedy, and even John Lennon said that he watched it and that they were like the Marx Brothers, which I agree. They were really funny, truly funny. Peter himself was truly funny. Now, this is about him, not just as a member of the Monkees, but as his own self, a musician, a human being. And my experience when he died last year, I did not know that I could channel from the other side, that it was a winter day. He died in, I believe, February last year, 2019. We'd had snow all over the place for weeks, thick snow everywhere. And he died, and I just couldn't stop thinking about him because there was something about him. And I knew that he was connected with Janis Joplin, whom I love. And so I looked it up, and there he was, picture of him and Janis Joplin. And there they are. I believe that's at the Monterey Pop Festival. And Peter had a great respect for Janis. And likewise, that alone told me that there was something about him that went beyond just that lovable, open-mouthed character that was always falling and getting kidnapped and all that, brainwashed. That he was a really deep, interesting person inside, probably had some troubles in life. And so I called him in. I don't know why, but I just said, Peter, can I talk to you? And it was just days after he had died. So I'm out walking in the snow with my dog, and I just instantly get in my inner psychic voice, yeah, I'll talk to you. Just like that. And I knew it was Peter. And so we talked. It was like the rest of that month of February. Every day, every time I went on a walk, we would talk, him from the other side. And then after our talks, I would go home and I would watch the Monkees and I would look up his music and all their music. And his life and everything. Um, and I just found out what a wise, deep, interesting, funny, loving, warm person he was. It just so warm. Instantly, I feel like I knew him as a human being. I've never met him on the earth, but I just knew that he was this wonderful human being. He's probably, as they say, the Heart Squad. He's probably a member of that group up in heaven now. So when I channeled him, and here I wrote some down here, and really what I wanted to know was I just wanted to know what his life was like, because I think he was pretty private, why he played that dumb character, which he played so well. He's so funny, but I knew that that wasn't quite him. And so, he told me that he did create that character, but it helped him in the whole monkeys craze, because the monkeys became very popular, like a cult popularity in America and beyond. And that character saved him from people knowing the real him, which he helped, held private and sacred. Very intelligent guy, very political. He was an Aquarius, so he was a free spirit, and a really decent musician. And I think he knew he had to save part of himself, because he knew the monkeys wouldn't last forever. That was, just a strike of luck. But yeah, what he told me was that was a protective thing that he had, to say, this is just a character on TV, but in real life, I'm this guy. And nobody can get to this guy except for my close circle of friends. But he did take the monkeys and the music very seriously. He really did. He wanted them to be a band. And the problem is that the public didn't take them seriously. And then I guess Mike Nesmith said in some interview that they didn't play instruments. They weren't a real band, all that. And then people went crazy and called them the fake Beatles. And that kind of killed everything. It really did. And Peter was hurt because even the managers and people, they would write their own music. They would try to do their own instruments on the records, and they would get just cut off. Even things that they wanted to release, songs they had written, were not being released. So they were being played bad. The money was getting screwed with. And so Peter, it was just a lot of, he knew that it wasn't going to last. And he was heartbroken over this, because if everyone in the band had gotten together and protected this, they could have lasted. They could have been, like he says, like the Beatles. But they were a decent band, and they always will be. So what did I get from him? I want to see. Oh, I asked him about in the 70s, what did he do in the 70s? And instantly he showed me a bottle of alcohol, and blah, blah, glug, glug, glug is kind of what he showed. And there was, failed marriage, and there was, he did try. He learned a lot, is what he said. He learned a lot. He actually spent time as a teacher, which is really interesting, but that wasn't quite, what he was meant to do. But really he wanted to get back to the music. So that's what the 70s were a time of introspection, failure, alcohol, learning, trying to get away from that, trying to find himself, because he knew that he had issues that he had to work through. And this came from his childhood. He was an army brat. A lot of moving, and a lot of what he called a lot of loneliness and having to prove himself. So he had this feeling of always being kind of a loner. He didn't like that. He wanted to be with people. He really loved being with people. But the alcohol was that he just did not ever feel confident in himself. He never felt like he belonged. So he had to get over that, and he knew that. He knew that he had to get over this addiction, and he did fight it several times in his life. He had to fight that. So that was a huge hurdle for him. He was determined to overcome that. There was a time with Peter where I felt like, why is this happening? Why am I conversing with him so much? Why is he hanging around me so much? And he did tell me that after his death, and it was a difficult death of cancer, he had throat cancer. He had battled it, gotten over it, and it came back, and then that was really rough. And he really says from the other side, that was fuck cancer, basically, is what he said. That was the worst part of his life. But it did teach him a lot, and he went gracefully. And I guess the thing that I wanted to say was that, he didn't really want to die. He liked being alive, and death to him, he was adjusting to it, but he wasn't accepting it yet. And I asked him, what's going on, and he said that he was afraid he would just end up in a graveyard and no one would even remember him. And that always makes me sad. And I said, oh my God, when I see you, Peter, I see like a prism and rainbows and the universe. And I mean, he has a psychedelic free spirit energy of that. He is just stardust. That's what he was and is and always will be. And I said, Peter, you're more alive than I am, really. And I did feel after I said that he kind of went off, and that set him free, and he understood that he was okay. People love him. There are groups on Facebook that people talk about when they went to his shows. He made himself available to everyone. This is his personality. This is from that loneliness that he had. And he would give everyone hugs, and he would try to talk to anyone that wanted to approach him. He was very open and very loving and kind. He believed in the word he gives me a lot is community. He believed in community, and he believed that peace was something that we worked on. He believed in it, and politically wise, he was liberal, and he just believed that you fought for peace, and that you helped your brother, you helped each other. So, what do I want to see? Yeah, just a really beautiful energy. When I think of Peter, I really become overwhelmed with like with tears of joy. That's his energy. I'm surprised that no one else has channeled him yet. I really am, because this was a great ray of light on the earth, and he always will be. He's in the universe, this ray of light. He's such a dear person. The legacy that he left was that you don't have to be famous to produce this type of energy, that it exists, and he held on to it and he spread it. It didn't matter if they were on TV or if he was in a little club somewhere. He held on to that. That was him. That was such a beautiful thing. So I did ask him some things like, what are your favorite things? I just wanted to know all that, and without having looked it up, I wanted to get it from him first. And he said that he loved the White Album. That was one of his favorite albums, and he loved Mother Nature's Son. After he told me that, one of the monkeys, Mickey Dolenz, went on a tour this last year doing the White Album, which is, I can't imagine how hard that would be. There's so many songs. There's difficult songs. They're very eclectic. And I just thought, well, there we go. That's a confirmation that I'm right, that Peter did tell me that White Album was his favorite album. He influenced Mickey Dolenz to do it. And he even told me that when Mickey did the shows, that Peter would be there on stage and he would make the lights flicker. So then I said, well, what's your other favorite music? And he said, blues, rock, old stuff. What's your favorite food? He said, cheeseburgers, pizza, but especially sushi, he said. He emphasized sushi. His favorite color, yellow, red, orange, and blue. And he really loved that yellow. And, like I said, he's a ray of sunlight. If you look at him, you could see that. That was his aura, was that beautiful yellow. Dog or cat? He said both. And he did mention his first, really kind of like his wife, Rain. Her name was Rain. And that was his best and worst relationship. But his wife, before he died, he really loves her. She really supported him, brought a lot of strength to him, and he's very grateful for her. What does he miss most about being alive? He said, hugs, eating, and swimming. What does he not miss? People yelling at him. He says, cancer, all his hang-ups and fears. What was his favorite movie? The Wild Ones, Rebel Without a Cause. Some interesting questions here. I asked, did he ever have like a homosexual experience? He said, no, not unless you count orgies or threesomes. Okay, let's get that one over with. What did he not accomplish in life? And he said, nothing. He's satisfied. He's very proud of his life, especially of his children. Okay, a few weeks later, I called Peter in just for fun. And then Davy Jones came in. So that was really interesting. So he and Davy together talked to me. And Davy's presence was strong and bright. I could clearly hear his British accent, not a typical one, his very own rounded, thick way of speaking. So I thanked Davy for coming in. We spoke about his life and what he was doing on the other side, and he showed me horses. He loves horses. But his life as Davy was to be a star, full on dance, music, personality. He was a star, like totally like and the image of a star. He was the total package. Davy is very confident and happy to talk. He's not shy at all, but somewhat weary to tell all. He's a little bit private. He said he wanted to be a jockey in his lifetime, but the fame thing kept coming back. He says he wanted to make his father proud. He loved his father, and his father died pretty early on after he became a monkey. So he's really quite young when his father died. But his father influenced him a lot and made him want to work hard in everything he did. That's why he worked so hard towards success as a monkey. He was very dedicated to it. He appreciated it, everything that he had. And he said everything he did for his dad. He says that what he did wasn't hard work. His dad was the hard worker in every sense. Davy says that's why he didn't sit around complaining and twiddling his thumbs, because he'd seen his father come home from the factory tired and sweaty. I asked how difficult it was for Davy when his father died, and he said it could have been worse. It happened fast, and at the time there was so much going on with the Vietnam War and all that, people had it worse. There was something to fight for, and with the music that they were contributing with as the monkeys, it added a lot to society in that whole scene. So even though he was grieving his father, he felt like his pain was his personal Vietnam, and he couldn't complain because it would be stupid and they were being productive. So that's Davy's energy right there. He said one thing that he does on the other side is to help kids like him, stars, musicians who need confidence and who are working through grief or hard times. And it's interesting, Davy showed me John Stamos. He said that they are very comparable, and that John Stamos and him have a lot of the same energy. Okay, so Peter Tork and Davy said that they do play music together on the other side, but not all the time. I asked if the remaining monkeys, Mike and Mickey, would ever replace them, and they said no. That was a big no. They will never. And they said they can't ever replace us. Davy's voice came through loud and clear on that one. You can't replace us. We're irreplaceable, Peter says. And we were a real band, Peter goes on. No matter what anyone says, we were a real band. I asked who's taking their death the hardest, and they showed me Mike. They said that Mickey is so structured with such a constant work ethic that he doesn't let it get to him as much. But he is grieving. He's seen me, Peter says. I forgot I'd written that. Peter says that Mickey saw him. And maybe that's why he's not grieving. Yeah, Davy says he's a fruit. And he waves his finger in the air about Mickey. Okay. He sees me in his dreams. So Mickey has seen Davy in his dreams. He knows we're still around. All right. I asked Peter if Peter influenced Mickey in his new endeavor to redo the White Album, and he said yes, of course. He heard me. I already talked about that. Okay, so Davy goes on to say that he felt that they really were comparable to the Beatles in many ways, and he wants people to know that they were just as funny. They were just as funny, just as talented and serious. They did a lot of the same things, which is what I was talking about. Take us more seriously, he said. We worked hard. We meant it. At least I did. I did too, Peter says. I loved being a monkey. We're the monkeys, they said together, mocking and laughing. Who made up that stupid name? Peter asked. Your mother, Davy says. That's funny. I remember that. Oh, I love them. Okay, so this is extra. By the way, I'm a huge monkey nerd, and I always will be. I say it out loud and strong. I am a monkey nerd. Okay, so this is extra, but then it's so weird. When they came in, then all of a sudden, I asked about John Lennon, and I asked if they'd bring him in, and they both looked at each other and they smiled and laughed. You mean Jesus? Jesus? They said. They asked. They were laughing. I was shown the image of a beautiful light, and then John in the middle behind them. apparently he has such high spiritual knowledge on the other side that they consider him Jesus-like, but they're just joking. But they were also referencing their love for him on earth, like he was a god to them and always will be. John is just a man. He's still John. We're all one. But that I love that when they did that. So what else did I want to say? I think that Peter and Davy, they all had such warm energy. I mean, personally, when I watch them, it makes my mood lift like way, way up. It's important to note things like that, that these people in these key times, like that time in the 60s was revolutionary, a lot of pain with the Vietnam War and a lot of change. And they came in, like Mickey Dolenz will say that nobody with long hair was on TV, with boys with long hair was on TV at the time. It was not allowed. And they came in and they just gave everything. They were crazy. They were funny. With the music, they put their heart into it. And yeah, they got mocked. They were, told that they weren't a real band, but they were. And that is something that Davy really, and Peter, pushes. They worked hard. Their music meant something, and they meant something in the craft with the humor and them together, that they would resurge at different times throughout their careers, and they would always come back together and create love. And that's what Peter's telling me right now, that was a big thing for them. It meant so much that they could keep being drawn back together to go on stage and create this love. And I mean, look at Peter's face. Look at him. And I want to talk about this in his older days. For the last decade or two of his life, he had experienced throat cancer, and it went into his jaw, I believe, or his tongue, and he had to have surgery. They had to cut open his jaw. When he found out that he had cancer, he cried. He says that he felt like his life really was over, and he was scared, and he was crying. But then he straightened up after that. It didn't take long. And he accepted it. And he said, I will get through this. He knew that he would be carried through whatever. He could get through it. And if not, then oh well. It's beyond his control. He was like that. He could let go like that. And it changed him. He went from this guy that was, still sort of living off the fumes of the monkeys, and he could be one kind of guy and just let loose and all that. And he had a lot of women after him, and he was a womanizer. He admits it. He loved all that. But what cancer taught him, and the surgery and in the recovery, it taught him how strong he was. And, he was strong in that he got over his alcoholism. He's very proud of himself for that. And he really found who he was and what his life purpose was. And that was that he was a strong person, and he wasn't alone, and he could bring that love to people and peace. And he worked toward peace and community, and that's just so huge to him. It always will be. That is his essence, Peter's essence. And Davy's essence was that he was this brilliant star, and he was so talented, and he brought smiles on people's faces, and he brought love, and that they were like a band of brothers together, and always will be, always. And it meant something. So the thing about, I'll end it here with Peter, that I think that he would like. Peter, what do you want people to remember? What's the message you want to give to people? That it was real. That everything he did, he meant it, and it was real. He really loved what he did. He loved music. He loved it. He loved people. And if we would all just spread that love and care for each other in the community, that we could get through and we will get through these problems. But you lean on each other and you help each other out. And we could all, if we all put in our little effort together, it makes a huge difference. And you make people laugh. He's so proud. He said he's so proud that he can make people laugh. He's really proud of that. There was a time, when he had to sort of give up, he says, with the band and go off on his own, because he still had a lot of sort of lofty goals to be this huge star on his own. But really, he saw the band was falling apart, and it made him sad. And what he learned from that was that you don't really do it alone. Yeah, there's a lot of things you have to do alone. You know, his alcoholism, his addictions, he had to face that alone. His cancer, he had to face it alone. But at the same time, he was helped through it. And by little by little, and people helping him out, and him accepting help. And you do have to get on your knees so many times in your life. And it touched him that people would help him, and people loved and cared for him. And so if any part that he could give, any little bit of joy he could bring to anyone else, that's what got him through. And when it was time for him to go at the end, he did release himself. He knew that he had lost, but he was carried through by the love he felt from his wife and nurses and the fans. And he was very private at the end. No one really knew that he was, except for close people, that he was going through the final stages of cancer. It was his close circle, his family, his children, his poor children, he says. He loves them. And his wife. That was a personal thing. That was the moment of his life that was the most personal. And in a way, it was beautiful. As hard as it was very dear to him, those last moments. And then when he was released and he was able to get that Peter back again that didn't have cancer, and now he claims it all again, how beautiful his life was, what a magical life he had, what an awesome life he had. He really lived a million lifetimes. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to say before I go. That the essence of Peter that I think was so cool, that I could see that in a past life, that he was like a traveling minstrel. He was one of those guys in a court, a king's court, who would travel around singing songs and playing the lute and cracking jokes. And that is just so him. Like that, he carried that through. He didn't have to be famous to do that. He's done it forever. That's his personality. He just loved what he did, and you could see it. And that's that. Let's make that the final note. Peter Tork, as a human being, really loved what he did, and that's why people loved him, because when he did it with all his heart and with all the joy in his being. And I just hope that this can spread, if you see this, let that be a lesson to you, to just, he says the best thing, the luckiest thing that you can have in your life is to do what you love and to get to do it every day. And you don't have to have money to do it. You could still do it in your side time. But if you love it, keep doing it, because it will bring joy to the earth and happiness to you. And it'll spread the love. So I guess that's the end of the message. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy. Have a great day. Bye.